My boss looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You're replaceable." In that moment, I thought he had just insulted me. What I didn't realize was that he had just signed his company's death certificate. Because 3 months later, his business was gone. His employees worked for me. And he was desperately applying for jobs. This isn't just a revenge story, it's a lesson about what happens when you underestimate the wrong person. If you've ever worked hard, stayed loyal, gone above and beyond, only to be treated like you didn't matter, this story will hit close to home. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay until the end. Because the payoff in this story is as satisfying as it gets. I worked for that company for just under 5 years. But it felt like much longer because I gave it everything I had. The business itself had existed for about 10 years before I ever joined. And when I came in, it was small, scrappy, and still finding its footing. Over time, we didn't just grow, we exploded. By the time my story really begins, we were the #1 provider of a very specific service in the region, controlling nearly 75% of the market. For a 15-person company, that was unheard of. I loved my job. Not in the fake, corporate motivational way, but genuinely. I loved the work, the skills I was learning, and the people I worked with. My coworkers felt more like a team than employees, and our clients trusted us deeply. I took pride in that trust. I took pride in being dependable. And I took pride in being the person everyone relied on when something went wrong. My role slowly became everything. I handled operations. I ran HR and payroll. I managed customer service, marketing, scheduling, and employee training. If someone was sick or on vacation, I stepped into their role without hesitation. There wasn't a single position in that company I couldn't cover if needed. I wasn't just doing my job, I was holding the business together. Twice a year, I sat down with the owner for performance reviews. Every single time, the result was the same. 10 out of 10. No notes. No criticism. No areas to improve. Just praise. I was told repeatedly how valuable I was, how reliable I was, how the company couldn't function the same way without me. Hearing that, year after year, builds a sense of security. It builds trust. And looking back now, that trust was my biggest mistake. At that point, I didn't see myself as replaceable at all. I saw myself as someone who had earned their place. Someone who had sacrificed time, energy, and peace of mind to help build something meaningful. I believed loyalty mattered. I believed effort mattered. And I believed the owner saw me the way. I saw the company as something worth protecting. I was wrong. Bonus season came late that summer. It was supposed to be routine, almost boring. By that point, bonuses had become a quiet tradition, nothing flashy. Just a recognition that the year had gone well and that the team had carried the company forward again. Because I handled payroll and internal operations, I was the one processing everyone's bonuses. I saw every number, every increase, every reward. That's when something felt off. My bonus was higher than previous years. But when I compared it to the others, it was noticeably lower. Not by a small margin. By enough to make me stop scrolling and stare at the screen. At first, I assumed it was a mistake. A typo. A calculation error. After all, I had never received anything but perfect reviews. I had taken on more responsibility every single year. If bonuses were performance-based, this made no sense. So I did what a professional employee does. I didn't accuse. I didn't complain. I asked a simple question. I went to the owner and said, calmly, "Hey, I just wanted to ask, are bonuses tied to performance? And if they are, what could I have done differently to earn more?" I wasn't prepared for how fast the answer came. The owner didn't hesitate. Didn't check notes. Didn't soften their tone. They leaned back, looked at me like this was obvious, and said, "The bonuses aren't performance-related. You're just more replaceable than the others." For a second, my brain didn't register the words. Replaceable. The sound of it felt heavy, like it landed somewhere deep in my chest. My face stayed neutral, but inside, everything went quiet. My ears rang. My stomach tightened. 5 years of loyalty, of late nights, of being the safety net for everyone in that company, reduced to one word. Replaceable. I nodded. I forced a small, polite smile. "Oh. Okay." That was all I said. No argument. No emotion. I turned around and went back to my desk. I processed the rest of the bonuses. I made sure every number was correct. I made sure every employee was paid exactly what they were owed. And then I went to lunch. I sat in my car and just stared at the steering wheel. My hands were shaking. Not with anger yet, more like shock. The kind of shock that comes when you realize the story you've been telling yourself isn't real. I pulled out my phone and called my spouse, not to vent, but to ground myself. I knew if I acted in that moment, it would be emotional. And emotional decisions in business are usually expensive mistakes. My spouse listened quietly. No interruptions. No immediate advice. When I finished, they said something that stuck with me: "Let's not react. Let's think." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about a bonus. This was about respect. And respect, once it's gone, doesn't come back. When I went back to work, I did my job like nothing had changed. Same professionalism. Same efficiency. Same loyalty on the surface. But internally, something fundamental had shifted. The trust was gone. And once that happens, the clock starts ticking, even if no one else hears it yet. The hardest part wasn't going back to work after the conversation. It was pretending nothing had changed when everything had. I still answered emails. Still solved problems. Still kept the business running. But every task felt different now. Like I was maintaining something I no longer belonged to. The owner's words replayed in my head constantly. Replaceable. Once you hear that from someone you trusted, you start noticing things you ignored before: dismissive tones, credit taken for your ideas, decisions made without you. The respect I thought existed had been gone for a long time. I had just finally been told the truth. We already had a vacation planned. And instead of canceling it, my spouse and I decided to use it strategically. Distance has a way of turning emotion into clarity. On the surface, it was a normal getaway: nice food, quiet mornings, long walks, but every night we talked business. Not hypothetically. Seriously. We mapped out scenarios. If I resigned, how would the owner react? If I gave 2 weeks' notice, would they accept it or explode? What legal exposure existed? What non-compete clauses actually held up in reality? My spouse didn't guess. They analyzed. Years in executive leadership had taught them how fragile organizations really are when key people leave. We didn't rely on just our own judgment. We spoke with a business advisor who confirmed what we suspected. My role wasn't just important, it was critical. Then we spoke with a business attorney who carefully reviewed my employment agreement and confirmed something even more important. Nothing legally prevented me from starting a competing business. Hearing that felt like a door unlocking quietly. No drama. No fireworks. Just opportunity. By the time the vacation ended, my anger had cooled into something far more dangerous: resolve. I wasn't going to quit impulsively. I wasn't going to burn bridges. I would resign professionally, with 2 weeks' notice, and walk away with my integrity intact. Ironically, we also discussed what would happen if the owner reacted badly. Based on their personality, there was a strong chance I would be terminated immediately. We weren't hoping for it, but we were prepared. When I returned to work, I scheduled a meeting and submitted my resignation. 2 weeks. Clean. Respectful. The reaction was immediate and explosive. The owner's face changed. Their voice rose. Accusations flew. And within minutes, I was terminated on the spot. Access revoked. Conversation over. 5 years ended in less time than a coffee break. I walked out calm. Not shaken. Not surprised. Because while the owner was reacting emotionally, I had already made peace with this ending. The truth was simple: if I was truly replaceable, then my absence wouldn't matter. And if I wasn't, they were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. The moment I walked out of that building, I didn't feel panic. I felt focus. While my former employer was still running on anger and ego, I was already thinking about structure, systems, and execution. Within days, I began laying the foundation for my own business in the same industry. Same core service, same market, but built the way it always should have been. Cleaner processes. More flexibility. Better communication. And most importantly, respect for both clients and employees. For years, I had listened to clients quietly express the same frustrations. They wanted more customizable options, better consistency, higher quality results. I had taken those ideas to the owner again and again, only to watch them get dismissed for one simple reason: they weren't his ideas. Now, I didn't need permission. I built those features directly into my new business model. I priced fairly. I delivered exactly what I promised. And word spread faster than I expected. I stayed professional. I didn't announce my departure publicly. I didn't badmouth my former employer. I let the work speak. At the same time, I stayed in casual contact with a few people from my old team. I never asked about the company, but they talked anyway. Morale had dropped almost immediately after I left. Decisions stalled. Mistakes increased. Clients noticed. The reviews on Google and Facebook told the same story I was hearing privately. Complaints about quality. Complaints about communication. Complaints about inconsistency. The reputation we had built together was unraveling. To fill my role, the owner hired 2 full-time employees and 1 part-time employee. Then he outsourced HR and payroll, tasks I had previously handled alone. Costs went up. Efficiency went down. And the cohesion that had once defined the company disappeared. Meanwhile, my business was growing. Steadily. Quietly. Intentionally. Within 3 months, I had enough consistent work to hire. That's when the real shift happened. Some of the best employees from my old workplace reached out. These weren't average workers. These were the people who carried the company alongside me. They didn't need training. They understood quality. They understood accountability. They joined me and stepped into their roles on day one. Clients followed shortly after. Not because I asked them to, but because they noticed the difference. As my company grew, my former employer's pipeline dried up. Incoming work slowed, then stopped. The number 1 provider in the region, gone in a matter of months. And through all of it, I stayed quiet. Because the most powerful revenge doesn't announce itself. It just works. The collapse wasn't loud. There were no headlines. No dramatic announcements. It happened quietly, the way most failures do, 1 canceled contract at a time. 1 unanswered phone call at a time. 1 former client choosing not to come back. The company that once controlled 75% of the market became irrelevant almost overnight. There was nothing left to sell. No buyer. No retirement plan. My spouse shut that down immediately. And they were right. Not because it wouldn't have been satisfying, but because I didn't need it. The revenge had already happened. Not through humiliation, but through consequences. Today, my business is stable. My team is strong. The clients are happy. And the environment I've built is one where people are valued, not tolerated. I don't tell employees they're replaceable. I remind them why they matter. So if there's a lesson here, it's simple. Don't confuse silence with weakness. Don't mistake loyalty for dependence. And never tell someone they're replaceable, because they might just take everything they know, build something better, and leave you starting over from scratch. In the end, the truth became undeniable. It wasn't me who was replaceable. It was the company. If this story gave you chills or reminded you of someone who underestimated you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more real, satisfying revenge stories like this one. And tell us in the comments, have you ever seen karma hit this perfectly? If you want next.